This GT5 podcast going to another episode. So to my boy Jesse, he know who he is. He probably gonna watch the podcast at some point in time. He called me Pastor Policeman because I work at his church. I've worked security at his church, but I don't think they've ever got to. I don't know that he's ever. I preached to the teens about a month and a half ago. It was good. I enjoyed it. It was something that kind of got me going in the direction that I'm going in. Um, and so, what I've been doing on my podcast is I obviously talk about relationships. I obviously talk about um, marriages. I talk about just standard relationships. I talk about all those things in the realm of personal relationships, friendships, best friends, family, all that. I also talk about mental health a lot on the podcast. Things that are important to me, things that I've experienced, things that I feel like with my experience I could kind of give some insight on some things because um, it helps. Anything I can do to help people, essentially, because helping people is what really drives me to the direction I'm going in. So today I'm going to talk about the parable of the unmerciful servant. So, you know, obviously, there's a debt. When you look at life, when you look at things, there's a debt. Um, and so, debts, the Bible was clear that debts need to be paid, right? The Bible is clear on that um, anybody that you're indebted to, you need to pay them. Now there are circumstances where there's an opportunity for the debtor, not the one that is in debt, but the one that the debt is owed to show mercy on people and forgive debt. There's debt that is forgiven. I mean, it happens in the world. You got people with student loan debts that are in a nursing program or that are nurses or that are they're school teachers that they do things so long in their particular practice or their job or career choice, and then they get their debts repaid, right? And then there are some instances where debts just get repaid. There's instances where you ask a person, a buddy of mine may ask me, which I don't give people anything. If I give you something, it's a gift. It's not something that I expect anything in return. Um, my mom taught me to be generous, and generosity is huge in my heart. It's huge for my kids, for my family. It's what I expect from my kids to be generous. I know it's hard to teach kids how to give because they want everything to be, they want to receive, receive, receive. So it's kind of hard to teach them how to give. But in this parable, I'm going to read some verses. We're going to talk about it. We're going to go over some things. Is huge. This is huge to me because this is proof that, when you look at what Jesus did when he died on the cross, right? So he died on the cross to pay our debt, right? Because we were rooted in sin. After the fall of man, we were rooted in sin. So we didn't have any choice but to live in sin, right? And so I think when you think about it, he gave us a choice, just kind of thinking about the election and people are all pro-choice. I want to be able to make the choice and make the decision and all that kind of stuff. So it's like that essentially, but it's from a sin standpoint. We don't have to live in sin, see, because the Lord died on the cross and his blood is holy. And with holy blood, that is the cost of sin. So when Adam and Eve sinned in the garden, um, obviously some sheep were killed to clothe them. That's the blood of the lamb. That's when they say the blood of the lamb, right? And so it took blood of the innocent to be able to pay the price for our sins. So we can't pay the price for our own sins. I can't pay the price. When I sin, I can't pay the price for it because I'm not holy. God is holy. We strive to be holy, but at the end of the day, we know that we are not holy, so we can't pay that debt. So I'm gonna read the first couple of verses and we'll talk about it. So we're gonna be in Matthew 18, chapter 18, verse 21 is where it starts. The parable of the unmerciful servant. Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times, he says. Jesus answered, I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times, right? So Peter comes up to God and he's thinking he's an overachiever. He wants to be an overachiever. Well, God, man, it's 7 times. That's a lot. It's this many, right? This many, 7 times. It's a lot. There are some versions that say 77 times seven. Basically, what the Lord is saying here is you forgive always. You forgive always, right? Because you yourself were forgiven. If you want the forgiveness um, that has been paid for you, you must forgive too. So what he's saying here is you think you're going to be an overachiever because all seven I'm going to do seven times, but also Peter's being honest. He's being honest. In your flesh, when people do stuff to you, you want vengeance, right? But vengeance is the Lord's, and so when you get into these mindsets, and you got to think about it like this, and we talked about this the other day at church when we talked to teens, Palestine and the Jews, you know, both all that's all descendants of Abraham. The Muslims and everything, all Muhammad, all those are descendants of Abraham. So they are actually family fighting each other over land because so back in those days, the firstborn got the land. That's just how it was, right? But because Jews live in the Old Testament, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, tit for tat, they've been fighting for so long. But you ever notice that they've never been defeated, right? They're obviously they're still those are God's people, right? Jesus was a Jew, so until the day comes to let something happen, nothing's gonna happen. They're gonna always be protected. We protect them. I mean, they go to war and I mean, shoot, they shot missiles. Iran was shooting missiles over there, and they're hitting all the missiles, taking them out of the sky. Protected. There's divine protection, right? But that goes back. That goes back into history. Therefore, the kingdom of heaven is like a king who wanted to settle accounts with his king or his servant, sorry, as he began the settlement. A man who owed him 10,000 bags of gold, 10,000 bags of gold back in that day, he would have never repaid that in his whole entire life. So he owed the king 10,000 bags of gold. That's a life sentence. That's probably another life and another life after that to be able to pay that back. He owed this guy his life essentially. We'll say that. It was brought to him. Since he was not able to pay, the master ordered that he and his wife and his children and all that he had to be sold to repay his debt. So back then, they could jail you for not paying your debt. There's a lot of things that they could do to you for not paying your debt. Like, I don't think people understand how important it was in that time to pay your debt. You had to pay your debt. It's biblical to pay your debt. Like I started this sermon talking about, it's biblical to pay your debt. You have to pay your debt. But he would not have been able to pay his debt to the king. The servant would not have been able to pay his debt to the king because his debt was too much. How he racked that up, I don't know. You guys can debate that on your own time. How he racked that up, I don't know, but he racked it up. He owed more than he could even fathom paying in his lifetime. He could not fathom paying this king back in his lifetime. At this, what did he do? What did the servant do? The servant fell on his knees before him. Be patient with me, he begged, and I will pay back everything. The service master took pity on him, canceled the debt, and let him go. Fell to his knees, begging, please, 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 do not jail me. Do not take my family. Do not sell us all off. Give me the opportunity to pay you back. Let me get the opportunity to pay you back. On his knees. And the king had mercy, right? Grace. We'll use the word grace because I love that word. He had grace upon him. And so, okay, I will repay your debt. All right, so what does the servant go on to do now that his debt has been canceled, right? Through mercy and grace. But when that servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 silver coins. 100 silver, that's it. Now, we're not talking about 10,000 gold, anything. We're talking about 100 silver coins. He grabbed him and began to choke him. Pay back what you owe me, he demanded. So he gets his debt paid in full. He walks out, has the opportunity to pay it forward to his fellow servant, his fellow brethren out here. And instead of paying it forward, he chokes him and says, you pay me what you owe me. You paid me what you owe me. So just because you get grace doesn't mean you're going to give grace. Just because you get the opportunity for mercy doesn't mean that you're going to give mercy. But we as Christians are called to give mercy. We're called to give grace, right? So in this instance, he had the opportunity to stand on the grace that he was just shown by the king. His fellow servant fell to his knees and begged him. He look at that. Look at that foreshadowing. Be patient with me, and I will pay it back. So here, he did the same thing. This is servant to servant, not servant to king. He fell on his knees for a servant, guys. I need you guys to understand what this means here. A servant, he fell on his knees for somebody that was on his same level. He did not bow down and fall on his knees to a king. He did not bow down to an emperor. He did not bow down and fall on his knees to Jesus Christ himself, to another servant. This guy is a servant too. These guys are on the same level. My man hit his knees and said, please, please, please be patient with me. He didn't say, I'm not going to pay you back. He said, I will pay you back. Have patience because I will pay you back. But the opportunity comes for our guy who has just served a plate of mercy and grace to hand out some to himself. But he refused. Instead, he went off and had that man thrown into prison until he could pay the debt. Crazy. Crazy. So he's shown mercy, grace, love, and the opportunity comes for him to be able to show it back, right? To show it back to this individual, right? That is on his level, that's begging him on his knees, please, please. He didn't say, I won't pay you back. He said, be patient with me and I will. He didn't want to go to jail, right? He sends him to jail, throws him in jail. What do you think? What do you guys think happens next? Does karma come back around? I think it does. When the other servants saw what had happened, they were outraged and went and then told their master everything that had happened. So now the servants are regulating. Okay, this guy right here went and choked this other guy out and would not show him the mercy that he was just shown from the master. So we're going to go, hey, they say snitches get stitches, but not back in the day. Then the master called the servant in. You wicked servant. Wicked servant. He called him a wicked servant because mercy and grace were not in his heart. He didn't have that. Mercy and grace were not in his heart. He did not have the capacity for mercy and grace. He said, I cancel all the debt of yours because you begged me to. Shouldn't you have had mercy on your fellow servant, just as I had on you? In anger, his master handed him over to the jailers to be tortured until he should pay back all he owed. This is how my heavenly Father will treat each of you unless you forgive your brother or sister from your heart. So he gives them the opportunity to see the possibilities of what could happen should you not forgive. Should you not forgive? So, crazy. We're talking about grace and mercy, but this all ties into the spirit of forgiveness, what it means to forgive people. If you can't forgive, you shall not be forgiving yourself. If you can't forgive. What is forgiveness anyway? What does forgiveness mean? What is it? What constitutes forgiveness? Is forgiveness letting go? Is it forgetting? Is it choosing to still love? What are things that need to be forgiven? Now, don't get me wrong, don't get it twisted, guys. I'm not saying that there are no consequences for your actions, right? If you act in a specific way that breeds specific consequences, you will face the consequences of your actions. That is how life works. And that is how the kingdom of God works. You have consequences for your actions. So it's not saying that there's no consequences. Forgiveness is the way I see forgiveness, the way I've always kind of seen forgiveness is like this. Let me explain it to you. Forgiveness is not to set free the person that has done you wrong. It's to set free the person that has been done wrong. That's what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is you breaking the chains of wrongdoing and allowing yourself to be free. Forgiveness is the truth that sets you free. Without forgiveness, you remain in chains and bondage to those who have done you wrong as long as you seek vengeance. So we look at the descendants of Abraham. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, tit for tat, right? There's no forgiveness over there. That's why they are fighting till this day, fighting to the death. They family. If you look back in their lineage, they're family and they're fighting to the death till this day because forgiveness is not in their heart. How long does it go? How long does it go? Does it ever end? You can have generations of families feuding and fighting and killing each other over and over and over and over and over again, and it never ends. Why live like that? That's the question I got for you guys today. Why do you think it is okay to live like that? To live in an environment where you're always looking over your shoulder because it's tit for tat. Do you have peace? Probably not. Probably not. You probably don't have there's no peace there. You can't. How can you have peace in constant turmoil? So forgive, Jesus says, because you've been forgiven. Forgive so that you can continue to be forgiven, right? When Jesus got up on that cross and died for us, it was under the context of forgiveness of sin, freedom from sin, a choice from sin. And so we have the opportunity today to choose a life that is not rooted in sin. Do people choose that life? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It just kind of depends. But what Peter was being told and what Peter was being shown is that it is against your nature to forgive. So sometimes when the going get tough, because trust me, if somebody does something to your brother, your sister, your mom, your daughter, your wife, your husband, whoever it may be, your loved ones, you need to lean in to the book a little bit harder. There's going to be times when it's going to be easier, right? But there's going to be times when it's going to cost you a lot. And when it costs you a lot, there's one place to turn to the word. Because the word is God himself. So you're turning to God when you most need him. When you need him the most, that's when you turn. Read the Bible, pray, fellowship. With that being said, though, guys, I don't want to go too long today, but think about it. Think about what Peter was getting at. Think about what Peter was just taught. That's wisdom right there. Because of mercy and grace and forgiveness, you, my friends, can be set free. Huge, huge, huge in the realm of life, lessons, huge in the realm of constant convictions. People are always going to be doing things that hurt you, and you don't want to become stuck in a cycle of repaying and vengeance. And I got to get mine. I got to get mine. They got theirs. I'm gonna get mine. You're 70 years old on your deathbed, wishing that you did not live your life in turmoil. You had no peace. Forgiveness actually can help you lead you to a life of peace. This is your G Divide podcast. So I appreciate you guys rocking with me. Please like, subscribe, share, comment. If you have any comments, see you guys on the next one.